ragazzi, come stai? Sto bene? You know, 300 days on Duolingo and this is all I know. But still I tried. Okay. Nice to see you guys here in Italy. I really love Italy. I spent here 6 months in my life in Milano, but back to the topic. If you know me, do you hear me well? Cool. Okay, if you know me, you know that I like to tell stories, and today it will be exactly the same. So, if you eat a lot of food now, feel, comfortable, stay relaxed, drink some beer if you have, but probably, Julian, you have, yeah? Okay, and just listen this short story. Like all story, long time ago, there was a boy who, of course, wanted to become Angular developer because all children want to become Angular developer from the scratch. Yeah, it's normal. And, he went to some school of coding, not magic, but coding. And after a few months, he decided to go for some boot camp, I don't know, do you have boot camps here in Italy or in other countries? Yeah, that you can perform. And after 6 months, he was ready to the market. And like you see, he got the first job as developer in big corporation. And he thought after this 6 months boot camp that everywhere code is perfect, everything is working fine. But unfortunately, in Corpo, sorry for that, it looks like that. Yeah, everything was coupled, there was no reusability at all, basically going, shipping, and it looked like. So he was a little bit destroyed. But he was big brain. He said, I have great idea. Let's create reusable presentational component with Angular. I read one article about it, yes, smart versus dummy, I will do it, I am the best. And like you probably know, he created his first component, product details component. There was name, description, and price, and it looks so beautiful like that. And after that, it was, there wasn't signals in this time, but you can put signals here as well, and just pass title, price, and description from some observables. And he was really proud of himself. He created first element of design system. He always wanted to do so. Later, there was card details, and he created card details presentational component. And here we have our first bad character of the story, product owner. You said it will be reusable, but it takes even more time than it was before. And he said, no problem, mate, I will handle it. Instead of creating new component, he decided to just use product details in card details. Smart, yeah? But unfortunately, there was a second bad character in this story, senior developer and code review. And man, why do you mix 2 domains and you are using product details component in the card details view? He was a little bit tired after these 2 sessions, but there was some thinking, what we can do better? And he, of course, read a lot of books, and he found the blind master of Angular, and he told him something like, it can't be simple, it needs to sounds really cool and professional. You need to think about presentational components as another layer. Okay, what does it mean? Domain should not leak to presentation layer. So it occurs that from this reusability, it's from in this direction, we went to the no reusability at all, because we cannot reuse exactly the same presentational component. And why? And to explain you why, I need to back to something you hate probably, so layers. We have UI layers, application layer, and data layer, and even if you think you don't have, everything inside is inside component. So, but today I would like to only talk about UI layer and what our blind master said. So, it's okay when smart component knows about state, model, whatever. It can be basically HTTP service. You don't need to have this state layer at all, but it's about the language. And dummy component should never have something like price, something like domain language. this is what our blind master thought, that smart components should communicate with pure UI, and pure UI should never know about model from your domain, because you cannot reuse something that is connected with model. And if you see in your design system that you have NGRX dependency, something went wrong. Okay, so you can, but of course, you can use models. It's not to be primitive at all. It can be just UI model, card model, but not product model. So this is the first lesson. Instead of creating components with some domain language, use header, content, something like UI. Okay, now he said, ragazzi, I have idea. We will create beautiful design system. I am ready to do it. And he gathered even the team, as you see here, and they created perfect design system. And we have new bad character. Do you know, maybe? Who is she? Yeah, not QA, but close, UX UI. We need to introduce almost the same table, like in design system, but instead of a button, I would like to see a link. Probably you had the story like that, yeah? Everything was perfect, but suddenly something needs to be different. And of course, everyone probably here tried to create table component with input data. And it was exactly the same idea. We have some type, action, and of course, after it, we have new input, is link, and of course, it's working. We add new input, yeah? But suddenly, again, our product owner, we need to introduce almost the same as in design system, but instead of the button, there should be A, B, or C, or D, you know, every time something different, which was not implemented in our design system. But again, big brain. Let's add new input, great idea. And later we have button text, button color, and label text, label color, label size, everything because I love inputs. And of course, after it, application is unstable. You said everything would be great when we introduced design system, but the logic of ifs was so complex that, you know, even when you want to fly to Mars, it was even easier to understand. And he went to the cage of the code he just created. It was not easy. And maybe now, imagine that it's you. This is some kind of, you know, counsel. And what we can do better here. 2 words. Probably I've heard, but we will see. So he found another master, and this time he get new great advice. You should create solution which is open for extension and closed for modification. Yeah, but what does it mean? It occurs that we are so focusing on reusability in design system that we forget about one important thing about another dimension, that we don't need to only think about reusability, but also about extension, about making it easy to add some functionality. So we need to find a way to go from big reusability to big reusability with open of extension. And it's called content projection. Like Lego, yeah? We can make our software like Lego because probably I've never seen in HTML to pass content through attributes. Basically, it's like that, yeah? Div and basically content is inside. So why we developers love to create content input? It's strange. I think material example is a really good place to see because like you see here, it's better to see here. We can put some input. We can later to matform field add other input and maybe text area, and it's open for extension. It's not that we need to add new inputs and we have, I don't know, 1,000 of that. But there is an edge. Once I told one guy, use content projection, and he said, oh my God, it's awesome. And later I saw something like this, that he created component to just pass content through ng content and add some styles. And it occurs that from extreme reusability, we went to total poor reusability, but very high index of content of projection. So our developer was again sad. He played some song of his beautiful instrument, and later he found the real master of reusability and design system. And he asked himself, our character, why are you creating components if only you need to add some common styles? Boom. Maybe instead of creating component and let's go from I love content projection or I love inputs to just pure HTML. Why we as developer want to create components if we just can add simple HTML there. We can add, HTML has native content projection, yeah, because we can just put some content there. And instead of creating some inputs component base or to generic content projection, we can just use CSS utility classes. But of course, I know that you have questions about it. What if I need to add some custom behavior? Then for sure, components should be created. Unfortunately, no, or fortunately, you don't need to create component to add behavior. You can use directives to use it for native HTML element. Do you like directives? Yeah, yeah, I know, one guy, yeah, great. Oh, 2, 3. So basically, I thought that everyone will tell me that they like and at least one uses, but now I see that only 3 people likes directives, so it's so bad, okay. But back to the topic. So if you know, just stop thinking about component base and you think about that directive is equal to behavior, then you can create some logic in directive and, wait a second, yeah, and then you can add this custom click behavior to a button. Then you can extend it with some class. Then you can later use it on some different element. So if the product owner or UX designer will come to you and say, hey, I would like to have the same logic but on button or on image, you can just use the same directive and you don't need to rebuild the whole design system. You have smart directive there. And yeah, it can be also a link. So the next way is directive. But for sure, there are some topics that you need to create component with custom behavior, some HTML structure. And yeah, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Maybe the component you need already exists. And there is, of course, there is material, but it has styles. But you can use CDK. There are a lot of very complex component, then you can just use, for example, table, like in material, the same is in CDK, and it doesn't has any styles. So you don't need to hack material to make it looks like in design system, but you can just use CDK, which is really good in this case, and just add some styles. So style existing component. And basically, if the component I need to create does not exist at all, even in CDK, even in some other frameworks, then you really need to add some presentational component. This is the moment to do it, but with the usage of content projection and directives. And again, material is a great inspiration for that. So if you want to create some components, take a look how it works there. Oh, sorry. Okay, we have here content projection. We have some UI directives. We basically think not only about reusability, but also about open-close principle, and also think that, you see, there are not input at all. There are only class. We are not using input. And basically, for a long time, I was rather, don't use input at all, but you can use it, but use it for configuration, not for data. If you think about data, put it as content projection. If you think about configuration, put it as input. For example, it's not material inspiration. You can imagine some filter container that you can add to filters, some, I don't know, static filters, but also some custom filters, maybe some filters that needs to fetch data from the backend, some search for, and you can implement some container when we submit all these filters, and inside we can add whatever we want. We can implement custom filters even, and I don't know, add some structural directive to show and hide elements based on some logic, or maybe add some attributes directive to, I don't know, react on filter changes to gather it inside the container. It's just an inspiration. And so, yeah. And now we went through the long road, and maybe, sorry, I was a little bit fast, so let's back to the basics. So, of course, you can copy and paste. Basically, it's good when you're starting your project. Later, you can make domain presentational component, hybrid components, which are not reusable and not open for extension, so better not to do it. You have inputs and outputs, which are extremely reusable, but not open for extension. There is also some styles encapsulation. Basically, I prefer to use some global styles instead of styles encapsulation, because when it comes to redesign, you have a big problem because you need to touch every component inside. But I know it's, it's my my topic, my idea. Next, we have two generic content projection, and the green one, CSS utility classes, directives, style existing components, and content projection and UI directives. And here you have some, I use it as a, let's say it, rule when I need to create component. First of all, do not mix presentation layer with domain and business logic. Do not use inputs for data, use it for configuration. And do not create components. Instead, use CSS utility classes if you need to style something. Create directives if you need to add custom behavior. Use existing component and style it if there is no something, if it's not enough. And create component if not of all these three things is enough for you in this moment. And basically, it's all. I will talk a little bit more, but this is the end of the story. We are coming back to our homes, and basically, why I like to tell stories. I like to tell stories because you can find your own moral. You can basically, you heard some story, you can find your own moral, and sometimes it's even better than I thought it will be. But what I want to explain here, first of all, reusability is also about open-close principle, and it should be extendable. So think about it during creation of your next design system, next components. Design system should be treated as external system of your application. You can easily take it, grab it away, and put in another application. This is important stuff. And important stuff is that it should not be coupled with your application. So never put there, I don't know, your store, your domain logic. It's again the same topic. And do not totally focus on technical possibilities of the framework, but take a look at principles, connect it with possibility of frameworks, because maybe you can create design system that will be fit for Angular, React, whatever. Then you can't create components. And there is one, let's call it the Holy Grail. I'm joking. I would not be able to invent the Holy Grail, but basically this presentation was created 2 years ago. 1 year ago, I just made some redesign, and now we are here in Rome, and it's still valid. And you see, basically Angular has now renaissance, a lot of changes, signals, new inputs, route table inputs, and all, but this content is still valid. It was created 2 years ago. So if you really want to, it's my advice, of course, it's your decision, but I would like end this session with advice. If you want to make a big jump in your professional life, think about something bigger than tactical view. I mean, how to write input, how to write code. If you really want to become a really good engineer, really good programmer, think about NFRs, about non-functional requirements like reusability, reactivity, performance. Then, when you take a look at the problem, maybe you can find a better solution. And I don't know, observable signals are not, the only one solution. So escape the solution view, make a zoom out, and think about something more important. About all it is. And it's all. So I hope that I open a little bit your minds, and you will have this, I think it was called Jump of Fate, in this game. And my name is Mateusz Łędzewicz. I am dzewicz organizer, also co-owner and principal Angular consultant in Logular, where we are changing lives. I know, sounds good, but basically we are creating developers, making them better, creating projects, sometimes giving the first job. And if you want to know more, scan this code. There are this presentation, some GitHub, also some form to contact me, and some social media. You can meet my alter ego, Januszek Programowania. Thank you a lot.